Good morning to Sunday Safe Spaces, everyone. Welcome for being here. We are recording live, and we will be using this recording in forever. Like, we have our YouTube channel this will be posted on, and we'll be sharing this with others. So we appreciate it. We also will be sharing this with everyone of all abilities. So we have an ASL interpreter, and she is a woman, and she is African American. So we are also going to be conscious of that, so she has time to interpret and interpret everything that we say. So let me just start off. If we together can just take a collective breath, maybe hands in our lap, hands on our chest. I just want to invite us to get centered real quickly. So let's close our eyes. And just taking this moment of stillness collectively and individually as we are all in our own space. And allow your next breath to fill you up a little deeper, maybe dropping the diaphragm, maybe opening the lungs. And just let out a big. And I hope in this you could feel your own rhythm, your own heartbeat, the depth of your breath, and a clarity in your mind. And recognizing that you are safe, you are grounded, you are protected, you are together as one. And I honor and I thank you for being here at this time to share your voice and to bring healing to ourselves and to others. Whenever you're ready to come out of that, go ahead and open your eyes. Thank you for that. You are healers. You are all walking your path. And as representatives for our culture and for yourselves and for your communities, I thank you. You know, we are not, African Americans are not monolithic. We don't all think and do and are doing the same thing at each and every time. So it's important that this panel represent Black men, represent Black women, represent different fields in the fitness space. We have mindfulness, we have lifting, strength. I'm just really happy that you all are here today. So I'm going to introduce myself and give a quick intro on you, and I want to invite you to introduce yourself as well. Today, our focus is on Black bodies in the health and fitness space. I have been in this industry. I'm April Jackson, for those who are watching live stream and those who will be watching later on. I've been in the health and wellness industry. I grew up in it, and in 2003, I became a certified yoga instructor, certified strength, and really found my passion. I had my first child and decided to teach as opposed to just being a partaker in that. And I'm excited. I was thinking about this today. I learned all of this from the generations before me. So I had women in my family who were practitioners and did self-care. I used to get babysat by my aunt, and she would wake up at 6 and do yoga in her living room, which was unheard of in the 70s and in the 80s. So I was a dancer, grew up Point. My mother told me that they already know Black women could shake their ass, so I couldn't take Afro-Caribbean. There was no hip hop at my time. We just did that in the club, but we didn't do that in the dance studio. But I became a dancer. I danced on Point. I went to Performance Arts High School. I'm from born and raised California. Lived in Atlanta for 12 years, and that was a beautiful experience, and I've been in Pittsburgh since 2012. So my teaching started back in 1986. I taught so I could make money to keep buying Point shoes and dance and perform, and then I did it through college, and I did it throughout my life. So here I am, and I'm excited to see the diversity that has come into the fitness industry, because it was very different when I first started out. So today I want to talk about your trajectory and how you came into this space. I had started Sunday Safe Spaces with Open Up Pittsburgh. We bring centering to those with disabilities, and Open Space is about opening up so that African American, Black, and Indigenous people of color can find a space that they are inclusive, spaces that are inclusive, that are accessible, and that are free for all to participate in. We haven't always had that, and it's very important for that. Not just because there's intention behind it. There's intention that I'm sure all of you have, and I would love for all of you to share that, because with all that has gone on, especially with the veil, the curtain being pulled away, so that social injustices, racial injustices, injustices that have happened with women and continue to happen, that all happens to the body, within the body, and outside of the body. And how do we heal if we don't start with ourselves? So I invite you to marinate on that, and I would love for you to take about 5 minutes to share a little bit about your story, and then we were going to move forward in our discussion. So Wes Hamilton has joined me. We met, gosh, it's been over a couple of months ago, and we are going to be doing this together. So I'm going to invite Wes to speak, and then I'll take it to Erica and Yarden, and then you, Mr. Butler. All right, Mr. Hamilton, you're on.
What's up, everybody? This is Wesley Hamilton. I am the founder and CEO of the Disabled But Not Really Foundation. I am an adaptive athlete, public speaker, and model. I got into the health and wellness realm after being shot multiple times in my abdomen, which caused me to have a spinal cord injury. And at that time, I was overweight. I hadn't learned anything about a healthy lifestyle. So I came into this position kind of new. And because I was overweight, I was battling health complications. And, you know, unfortunately for most Black people, we live in disadvantaged communities. So certain food, we were in a food desert. So I was just kind of getting what I could. Well, that ended up putting me through a lot of things and allowed me to take control of my life. I ended up going to school to be a dietitian and learn nutrition on a different scale, and it changed my life forever. It actually did something for my mindset, which allowed me to become a athlete for the next 2 or 3 years, competing in bodybuilding and CrossFit, starting my nonprofit organization, and using that to start helping other people heal as well. So that's kind of how I got into it. Really just trying to find a way out of some mental daily defeats that I was dealing with, and it allowed me to free myself. And now I'm like an advocate and very engaged in it daily, and a big representation for the disability community. So thank you for having me, April, and everyone else that's on this call. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Wes. And he and I are going to be co-facilitating these panels every month, third Sunday of every month. And we have big plans. So we're moving forward. Erica, I'm not going to tell all your business. She is back and relaxed. And I would love for you to share your story with everybody. We're going to take about 5 minutes to do so.
I am back and relaxed from Cabo. So I took some time there, which is a complete stark difference from the gray skies and sweater that I'm wearing. I'm Erica Jones. I'm based in Minneapolis, live in Minneapolis. I'm originally from the Midwest and spent most of the time on the East Coast. And, Wesley, I thank you for sharing your story. And April, thank you for inviting me, and everyone here. I'm so honored to be a part of you and hear your stories and what you have to offer. Who am I? I am a precocious, curious girl from Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska. Yes, there are Black people that live in Lincoln, Nebraska. My parents moved there. My dad played basketball there. That's how we ended up. And, I loved my childhood there. So a lot of my youth, I spent going back and forth between DC and Nebraska, which really is what I think helped cultivate a sense of curiosity. And with me at such a young age, when it came to travel, when it came to health, when it came to basically anything. And I'm really grateful that my parents and family really created an environment that fostered that. And at such a young age, for me, health and fitness was something that I was always really curious about. And I was always really curious about self, meaning myself, the spirit, the soul, at 14. And I remember at 15 asking the question, who am I and what am I doing here? So from that one question, I really couldn't articulate what that meant, it led me on a journey to really seek it out through travel, through athletics. I ran track, and I was really curious with running and working out and around food, particularly in the Black culture. The things that my mother made or that I ate, I didn't always know if it was the best thing. I was the kid that always questioned everything. And a lot of people probably saw that as being ornery or defiant. And I guess that was my way of really seeking truth in the root of what it is. So for me, that really led onto the pathway of eventually in my 20s going into yoga. And really remember thinking that I don't even know if yoga is for me. And I had no idea why until I met a global yogi, Chelsea Jackson, and really started talking with her. And I knew that there was something that I wanted to do with it and I wanted to teach it. And what I didn't realize is that there was a whitewashing, that I didn't see myself in the space of yoga. And for me, being from Nebraska, that I felt that I was very attuned to knowing that I was always the only one in the space. And I didn't realize how like the wool over my eyes in yoga spaces that is. So, she's like, you have to do this if you feel it. So I did yoga teacher training when I moved to Minneapolis and really dove into there, into the practices, and have done over 500 hours worth of training. And I'm really grateful for the practice because it has really cultivated self deeper than I've ever could have imagined, and really led me to the answers that I was seeking at 14 and 15 years old. And then really diving into the practices of meditation. And finally this year, I'm really being able to find, I've been doing meditation for the past 6 years, but this year, through a friend of mine now, and through a movement called the Big Quiet, really found a form of meditation that resonates well with me. So I'm really grateful for that. So between yoga, meditation, food, and nutrition, those are like, it makes up of who I am so that I'm able to really cultivate myself and show up powerfully in the world that we're currently living in right now. By day, I'm an inclusion and diversity professional at the largest private company in the world. So when we talk about the social and racial injustice, that is my everyday conversations Monday through Friday. So I'm grateful and honored to be here with all of you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Erica. Thank you. You've said some things that we are definitely going to touch on later on. And I'm happy. So it's so wonderful to see another generation, see Chelsea Jackson, who's a soror, and now working on the Peloton platform, to see how she's grown from Lululemon. And I want to thank Lululemon because I wrote a grant with the executive director of Open at Pittsburgh, and that's why we are here. We received the Here to Be grant, fully funded. And so they believe in our initiative as well. And I will be doing some things with Lululemon. Richard Butler already, who is an ambassador, has been doing some things with them. And so I'm so excited that you're here. Mr. Brantley, native Pittsburgher, it is your time to shine, my friend.
Mr. Brantley, nobody's called me Mr. in a long time. All right. Well, I want to first and foremost thank you guys for having me, and I'm ready and willing to hear everybody's story and where what and where we can grow from here. As far as my story, I am born in Jamaica, grew up in this country in Reading, PA. So most of my life there in Reading, PA, but very strong Jamaican culture. My entire family, all 50 to 60 first cousins and aunts and everything, all live in the same area. So, I might as well grew up in Jamaica, in the sense of culture and understanding who I was as a Black person. And that is honestly the experience where my experience has always been different, because I didn't necessarily grow up as a Black American, even though I was in America. So quiet kid, growing up, used sports to, come out of my shell. Always a late bloomer and everything. I always say that I'm always taking my time to evaluate situations, and then I come out and shine. So, played college football. I sort of walked on in college football, and was fortunate enough to play some professional football, little in the NFL, and then arena football for a certain amount of years. During my time playing arena football, just like every football player's story, you start getting hurt and, realize that you probably can't do this forever, and, started training. And actually started training out of a doctor's office, got a doctor that was fixing me up here, and sort of how I learned training from a rehabilitation standpoint. And, my upbringing was always about service, very big into the church, and understanding what we give is sort of how we're measured. So this was a way for me to feel really good about giving back to somebody, giving somebody back their opportunity to move well, feel better, improve their self worth through what's happening with their body. So this is where I decided to take my life. In 2014, I started a company, Shape Training, which I'm the founder and president of. Over the last 7 years, we've done a lot of work, probably over 250,000 one-on-one training sessions, whole lot of group sessions. We're known in the city for doing really big boot camps. Hopefully at some point, in the next 18 months or 2 years, we'll be able to get back to some of those things. But my mission in the fitness industry really is to find coaches or trainers who want to do this for a living, and help them do that, right? Because there are not enough people who are out there, being strong supporters of other people's health. And, I think we're seeing it in this country right now where, our health is being attacked, and we're not sure what to do. We're waiting for a vaccine, which is troubling to me, but especially obviously for our community. I'm just a big person. I'm never waiting for anybody to give me anything. I have to go and find it. So I'm trying to build and develop people who are willing to look beyond, what the government's trying to give you, or what your doctor's trying to, tell you have to do. Because, I believe that God gave us the opportunity and the ability to heal ourselves, mentally and physically, spiritually and emotionally. So that's really my, my purpose in life. For me, I have not, to this point, I would say till maybe beginning of this year, been a big, I would say supporter of, Black first. And, and again, I think it's a lot because of how I grew up. However, that has been a big thought change for me this year. And right now I'm doing what I always do. I'm taking I'm taking inventory, and I have some plans to, to really help Black businesses get the support that they need, support that I know that I didn't get. I didn't realize I didn't get it until I started talking to some other people who got other things that I didn't get. But that's my new mission, in addition to continuing in the fitness industry, but also creating some support systems for other Black businesses to get the things that they need in order to win. So that's where I am. I think I'm going to enjoy this conversation. Thank you, guys.
Arden, thank you for your authenticity and your candor. And those are some things that we are definitely going to discuss. How is it different being a Black American born and raised here and culturally raised in this system, as opposed to being an African or a Jamaican or from the Caribbean or a South American? Like, those are definitely some intersections we're going to discuss. And I appreciate Wesley being candid too. How do we talk about the intersection of disabilities in the Black community? Because there are a lot. Emotional disabilities, physical disabilities. How do we bring all ableism together? So thank you for that. Mr. Butler, you have 5 minutes, my friend. I'm so happy you're here. Please share with the world your strengths, your talents, and all who you are. In 5 minutes, if you can do that.
I can do that. Psych, I'm lying. I'm taking over. So first of all, this panel, you're like the superheroes. It's like just united to got together to be able to just like use our superpowers and be in service of others. That's really cool. So I am a HR professional, a fitness professional, a father, a nephew, an uncle. I am a human being, but most people just see me as a Black man. I got started in this industry 38 years ago for self-preservation because I was bullied, every day as a young person. And I needed to find a way to stop the bullying. And I found some weights at the age of 14 and went into my basement and started lifting weights. And I built my armor of courage. And through that, I was able to go back into my community and face my bullies. And my bullies looked at me, "Are you getting big?" And I said, "Yeah." And they said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm lifting weights." And they said, "Can you teach us?" And when you think about it, why would I help bullies get stronger? But at the same time, I needed allies. And so I started training them in my basement. And what came out of that is that they better understood a skinny 6'2" person like myself, and they actually stopped bullying. They had self-confidence issues, and that's why they bullied, right? And so once they started getting that armor of courage, just as I did, they began to just go a different direction. As I said, I've been in this business for 38 years. I have trained thousands of people in personal training, professional athletes, Olympians, future Olympians. And I hope to be training your children and your grandchildren for the next 30 years. And I will just leave it there.
Thank you, my friend. All right, this is the dream team. Listen, you guys brought up some really interesting things. And first I would like to talk about, again, Black bodies in this health and wellness space. We talk about diversity and inclusion. And when this is a revelation that I just kind of been marinating on for the last couple of weeks. When we talk about diversity, something that's diverse is different than what is the norm, right? And so already I see the BIPOC community as being othered, because we're different. We're an outlier of what's mainstream. And I don't find that to be true in my own walk and my own experience. I find it to be true because I feel like it's been put upon us. It's good and it's important that it's happening. But in this health and wellness space, as I said, I started teaching in 1986, and I started teaching as an adult 2000, 2003. And I knew, like all of you have said, how beneficial being healthy was for me. And I grew up in California, and so eat healthy, be a granola. I have all those stigmas that were put on me. My mother was a registered nurse and was real bohemian. But as I got into this wellness space more and more and more, I didn't see a reflection of myself in any of these spaces, in any of these mainstream gyms, in any of these classes. Erica, I too would walk into a yoga studio and only see me. My first Black yoga instructor was in 2006. First time I ever had a Black yoga instructor. And it's only been probably in the last 3 years that I now see pictures and promotion of people of color. So in your experience, how has it been for you as a Black fitness provider, being a Black body and seeing other Black bodies? How has that played a part in what you do and how you do it? And how has that pushed your motivation to move forward in this space? And if you give me a hand raise, I'll click on you. I'll start with Wes, and then I'll go with you, Erica. Mr. Hamilton.
All right, cool. Yeah, live and direct. For me, I started my journey after the age of 26. I'm 30, a lot of different avenues in these few years, and competing in bodybuilding, a lot of Black bodies. But being a part of the disabled community, it comes from a source of empathy. So it was welcoming. Being a part of this community and this group. So I could see myself while I maneuvered through them. But seeing what these opportunities did, like seeing what going into fitness, seeing what being on a competition scale did for me mentally, only pushed me more to push health and fitness to our communities. I believe like once you understand like the build, like there's not one Black person that I feel that I've met. I'm not trying to be, you know, biased or anything, but that I've met at Sim Fitness that hasn't found such value in it that, you know, that they're now like everyone goes and takes it and starts to plant the seed within the community. It's like, man, like this is the piece that we're missing, you know, like, and so for me, like it's the moment that I found that it was a piece that was missing, it seemed like I started to gravitate to the people that were in the space that I was in, and it allowed us to start to push and manifest like what this could be for the communities that we represent. How can we bring this back to these communities? Like for me, being in CrossFit, I mean, probably now they're starting to throw a couple CrossFit gyms in the hood, you know, but honestly, with the cost of CrossFit, you know, with the cost of fitness itself, you know, and just that healthy lifestyle and the stigmas around it, you don't see those things in these communities. So for me, with my organization and the efforts that I'm doing is how can I, when I know that certain levels of fitness work better for certain people when it comes to mentally, physically, the challenge, you know, how can I make sure that these spaces, and then we have the faces like you and I, they're actually instructing, because the issue is we can get into fitness, but we're going into places that we aren't accepted. And when you're going in spaces when you don't feel accepted, now you aren't as confident when you go into like pushing yourself, you know, because now it's like you're a tool, or you're like this prize gold like trophy. And unfortunately, it's like that, you know, like for me, when I started to get in fitness, I seen that of how people looked at me like it was just the most amazing thing to see a Black man go into a space that he's not really a part of. And that's what really, that was for me, that was like, you know what? No, let me go back and start grabbing more people, because I see what's missing. And I don't want to be the only person. And I don't want to be tugged on thinking that I'm supposed to highlight something that only made me feel better and help me take control of my life better. You know, it's not like I'm doing this for trophies. I'm doing this and I take it to plant those seeds in my community to see more Black bodies in this realm, because of the benefits that I know it did for me, knowing who I used to be, right? Like, so I think for me, just the knowing that that space lacked it, and then having a disability and the lack of accessibility and facilities, the lack of you know, even that, you know, I'm inspirational like porn every time I go in the gym. I can't even do pull-ups, you know, in my wheelchair without people stopping me. I get that it's amazing, right? Like I get it, you never seen it. But I also get that I'm just in here trying to better myself like you know, and so like, but if you see more people in that space, then it becomes a norm, you know, and it's like, that's what I see for us. It's like, it's not such a norm because it's not enough of us. But as we keep pushing it and get these communities and get these facilities in these communities and trainers that look like us, that understand from an empathetic point of view, the amount of growth that we're going through, because it's not just physical. Most of it's mental. We deal with stuff every day. We probably dealt with it before we went in there. Then that's how we create something that's monumental. So that's my put, but I know I kind of went over the board, but yeah, going into these spaces that lack us only made me want to fill them up with us.
Erica, going back and following up on Wes, I know you were going to share with us as well.
Yeah, so what, you know, I'll start by sharing that I think that there's a two-prong approach in this. As I share, and for me, it's been a huge part of my work. I grew up in Nebraska, and health and fitness was always so important to me. And where I found more comfort was in white spaces. However, you know, that also for me was a self-sabotaging way. I ran track. I was really great at it. And I self-sabotaged and took myself out of it a lot of times because I didn't want to fit into this stereotypical mold of you're Black and that means you're fast. Like you are a good runner or you're a fast runner. And for me, that was really traumatizing to be stereotyped in that way. Second, and so a lot of my work was really letting go of the story that because I'm doing something and I'm accelerating, it doesn't mean that I am, you know, because a lot of, you know, Yard and I really identified what you shared about being Jamaica and Black. is that so many people saw myself and then attributed that like I'm a Kenyan runner and I could run fast. Well, it was short distance. I'm not from Africa, so I really did, you know, these are all the stories I put on myself to really push myself down. On the contrary, when I was in spaces like yoga, mindfulness, I also then, on the other hand, from the Black community, got that you're a sellout and that you're acting white and you're doing things for white people. And so for me, that was even more traumatizing. I don't know why I'm getting emotional about talking about it. I always do, but because that is like a huge part of my work on both sides. So I really didn't know, where do I fit in? And so for me, you know, I'm very now unapologetic in Black communities, particularly I'll speak in a Black community where, you know, a huge part of my story is that I was acting white, and I gave up that story, gave up what that looks like, because the Black community where there can be more healing is through really cultivating self. And once you are in tune with the mind, body, and spirit, that's how we will be able to eradicate things such as obesity, high blood pressure. In Black communities for female, the highest death rate when it comes to pregnancy. You know, there's so many different inequities in being able to take a stand and say, no, I want food that is sustainable and that's organic and that's healthy and enriches and enlivens my body to be more vital. And to be able to speak on that and have that voice, it's taken a lot of work for myself to feel comfortable and confident in that, to be really unapologetic, that it is not something that is deserved or earned. It's our right. It's the right of all people. And when we can uplift Black community, then we uplift all of our community to thrive.
Thank you for bringing that out, because that is why we're having these conversations. I understand you talk white, you act white, you do this, and I understand me suppressing that and not snapping my fingers and letting my true self come out, because I needed to hide that. I needed to mask that. And we do this in this industry as well. And I do, when you talk about it's not good to show white bodies all the time, I got a Victoria's Secret catalog. Don't hate on me, you guys. It came in the mail, and there was a full-figured woman on the front cover of the catalog. And it's the first time I didn't immediately throw it in the trash can. Oh my gosh. You know what I mean? Like, when do we show somebody on crutches or in a wheelchair or full figured or, you know, not light skin or tan or with a full afro? We haven't seen a reflection of ourselves in these spaces. And so we become tokenized and we become that inspirational porn. And that is why we are here and we are doing our work collectively. I know, Yarden, you were an athlete, and how was the transition from being an athlete to being a fitness owner and delivering health and wellness to others? Like, how did you feel as an athlete?
Well, you know, what's funny is, you know, I'm going to work backward to that answer, but, you know, I have two children, 9-year-old and 8-year-old, two girls. And so Erica, I'm hearing you when, you know, you're talking about hair and, you know, what their bodies are supposed to look like. And of course they're 9 and 8 years old, so they don't know anything. They only know what we're telling them. But what I'm so careful of is that I make sure that they understand what their hair is and that it's different than other people's, and that they don't have to, like, we purposely don't like put like, you know, bubbles in their hair and that type of thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we just want them to just have their hair and like it be messy sometimes. And sometimes, you know, mom blow dries it and does different things. But the reality is that our bodies were not, for a long time, and this is a nasty thing that this country still doesn't want to talk about, but our bodies, Black bodies, were just assets for a long time. So we still haven't gotten out of that mindset that our bodies are just assets. So even when you talk about the Victoria's Secret or Instagram, guess what? Now the trend is for white women to be built like Black women. that's the
Culturation.
trend now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's the trend. So, you know, what should we do with that? You know, should we feel good about that, or are we back in sort of, again, being treated as an asset and not being able to be even comfortable in our body because it's being copied in a way, right? So for me as an athlete, honestly, you know, you are I mean, you are an asset is what you are, you know, end of story, period. You know, and again, I'm a really shy sort of person. I'm like, I don't, you know, you only get a hug from me if you're one of three people, my wife or my two girls, that's it, you know, and not because of anything else. I'm not that close. I didn't grow up like that. But I remember my pro day is you have your shirt off and you're just in, you know, short tights, and they're like touching your butt and, you know, seeing, if your hamstrings are this or whatever the case may be. And there's a guy there with a pen and he's saying, oh, this guy has a good, you know, they want to see the firmness of your glutes and they're like, good bubble, this, that, so forth and so on. And you're like, it's a little weird, right? But you're all right, this is the process I have to go through, whatever. And then you go and play, and then you realize if you can't run that day, if you come in, you know, 5 pounds overweight, if you come, like, they find you and you're theirs during that period of time. And as soon as you're not, you know, as soon as you can't perform or whatever the case may be, they're moving on to the next person. And when you look at history, what does that look and sound like? It sounds a lot like the slave trade, right? So nothing has really changed. They've given us a little bit of money for it, right? But if you listen to people talk, you know, and particularly white people, when, you know, an athlete says that they're holding out this year until he gets more money, they're like, oh, just shut up and play.
Mm.
You know, because what is not understood or not taken into consideration is that you are a human. Like, I'm not here to play football or here to play basketball or here, like, I'm a human being. And if I'm deciding not to play because I want, you know, fair compensation, that is not something that should be judged by anybody else, right? Because if you were an accountant and you went to your boss and asked for a raise because you were, you know, overperforming your salary, everybody would clap for you on LinkedIn, right? But the athlete does it, the Black athlete does it, and he's being, you know, ungrateful, so forth and so on, right? But then you go into our communities, you go, is he really being ungrateful? You know, so that's where that was for me. I was very surprised in just how much, you know, how much there was a lack of care and promoting self-worth, right? That doesn't happen. Like, you know, as I think, you know, and I try my best to do this as an employer, is you have to, with your employees, you have to promote self-worth. Like, that's something you have to, you know, remind, you know, the people who are following you to do, because if you don't, you push people down a path where as soon as their perceived value in the area that they're in starts to decline, there where we have mental health. Now, for some people, they can withstand that and weather that because they have strategies that they've been taught when they were younger, right? To go move through that. But unfortunately, in our community, we don't have those strategies. So as soon as I can't play football anymore, that's why you see a lot of, you know, our athletes, you know, where's so-and-so? You type it in on Google and you look at Delonte West, who is a young man that played basketball, mental health. He's been on the streets for almost 10 years on the streets now. But guess what? It has now become a trendy thing because Mark Cuban picked him up and did X, Y, or Z. So it's more about Mark Cuban right now and not about Delonte West. You know, they're showing him, oh, and these guys, you know, Mark Cuban did this for him. Isn't that great? I'm like,
the great white hope.
Right. This man's been on the street for 10 years after playing in the NBA for several years and had resources. Who taught him his self-worth while he was there? No one. And he's not a unique story. So that's where you know, I think I'm lucky and I feel fortunate and I feel blessed that I did grow up with strategies and self-worth, you know, and I think that's the difference, you know, Caribbean, and this is, you know, my personal opinion, you know, Caribbean culture versus American Black culture. There is very little insecurity in Caribbean culture. None, almost. We think we rule the world. Right? That is a fact, right? But you know, American Black culture, what I found is there is a hint of insecurity that no one is talking about, because nobody really wants to really talk about the nasty things that this country brought us to, and how we got to this. You know, they say America's the greatest country in the world. Well, of course they are. They had free labor for 400 years, right? Of course they are. But we say America's the greatest country in the world because of, you know, liberty, freedom, justice for all, and George Washington and all these people. But that's not the truth. The
Right.
truth is the economy was built on free labor for 400 years, and they got a big head start at our expense. And that's something that we have to deal with.
I'm glad you brought that up, because as we, wind up our hour, and this is just a drop in the bucket. Today is not a day to cure all. We've all walked this earth for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. I legitimately just said all of our ages on here. and we come from so many different facets of life. And I want to segue into community. And Erica, you shared what you're doing in the community. Wes, you've shared what you're doing. Like, you have a mobile unit now. Like, you're going to build a mobile gym and take the gym to the community. I mean, that's awesome. But that value, that sense of value, like how, first of all, in a capitalistic society, you're always an asset. And then in American society, I am a native Black American, and it was amazing growing up in California. I have a sense of identity. My family's real strong in who we are. But moving to Atlanta, it was beautiful teaching classes where it wasn't 95% white and 5% other, and seeing like collectively so many people caring about themselves, because I wasn't in the Black community. I was in just, Atlanta proper. And then I moved to Pittsburgh, and it's de facto segregated. And as fitness professionals and health professionals, are we paid our worth? Are we too being used as, like Erica said, we're a picture on the wall sometimes? And walking our own path and knowing who we are individually is important. But then there is this responsibility to build up our communities. And it's a challenging road. I offer free BIPOC community classes. Some days I have one person. How do we deliver value so that people of color know their value in an American system that doesn't always value it as well? Richard, have you kind of springboard off of that, and then everyone else can chime in.
Sure. Thanks for everyone's stories. It's been fascinating. I really believe in if you take space, make space. So I've been more than glad just to sit here and learn from everyone else. This conversation, wow. We're having this conversation because of the transatlantic slave trade. We're having this conversation because 12.5 million people were kidnapped from their homes and brought to the Americas. We're having this conversation because only 10.5 million actually made that 2-year journey. We're having that conversation because there was a narrative in America that one group of people, Black people specifically, was inferior, and another group of people, white people, is superior. We're having this conversation today because we have to make space for ourselves, even after the so-called Civil Rights Act, even after diversity training. We're having this conversation because the elephant in the room is racism. As we talk about the fitness industry, I spent all of my 38 years making sure that BIPOC people could be employed, just like Yarden, in this space. I have gone out of my way to create communities. April, I created the Pittsburgh Fitness Council with the purpose of connecting fitness professionals. During this crisis, I believe in not wasting a crisis. I helped create the Pittsburgh Running Collective that actually has 5 Black running coaches. From who knew that there's that many in Pittsburgh, right? Because there's only 5 Black people in Pittsburgh. So
Especially the South Hills.
Yes. And as some of you know, I'm on a national level, nationally known, an influencer in rowing throughout the USA. And I have helped create connect awareness to the sport of rowing, because I've always been the only. I'm the first ever African-American executive director of a rowing program in America. I'm the first ever inclusion manager for U.S. rowing. And being the first isn't always comfortable. So as we talk about bringing value, as Erica said, we have to bring value to ourselves and understand how to be in this space as the other, how to be in this space where they tell you we're diverse now because the president was black, or we're diverse now in rowing because we have Richard Butler. And as I put in the chat room, you know, diversity without inclusion is just tokenism. And Black people, we get tired of being tokens. We get tired of being in that space. I actually am on the wall too, Erica, right? And I'm the only Black face on the wall at Lululemon. And I've brought that to Lululemon's attention, that where's the representation? And so us together in this room, we're talking about representation. We're talking about ourselves, self-care, and then being in service of others.
Thank you, my friend. We've been friends for a long time. He's one of the first Black people I met in Pittsburgh. I was so happy to meet another Black person in Pittsburgh. Erica, I'm not from the Midwest, and I wasn't used to that. And I was like, there are no other people here. And it's been strong since. Wes.
Can I add?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Erica.
Well, something that Richard said, sorry, Wes, is that, you know, when I think about like these spaces, and, you know, it's something that I've been really curious about. So for those who do it, I think it's really pivotal, is really beginning to start with youth. When you think about, like, especially with girls at the age of 14, girls in general, they begin to drop out of sporting events at a higher rate than boys. And when you think of younger boys, the two sports that they think of, or three, are basketball, baseball, football. And there is, when you think of like in sports as well, I think about how our coaches, people really bringing in nutrition and teaching about nutrition, teaching about the mentoring. And so I think that that is something that's really, really important. Otherwise, it's going to keep being this generational cycle that keeps happening over and over and over. And if we want to be able to keep seeing the spaces diversify more, we have to be able to break the pattern right now so that in 20 years, we see it in a different way that's sustainable. And so, you know, I think that there is innovation to think about how do we do it in a new way, where we are creating programs and looking at what are the programs that were there before, and how do we engage the youth differently in order to be able to, you know, I think about Michelle Obama and how she changed like school, you know, like with movement and food in schools, and how do we begin to teach and educate at that young of an age to really be able to make more space for people as well. So yeah.
Erica, that was awesome. And as a nutritionist and nutrition coach, I am 100% with you on that. And I love teaching young girls. I love teaching young girls dance. I love teaching them yoga. I love teaching movement, because my theory is if you know your body better than anyone else, then no one can dictate to you how you should walk, how you should dress, how you should look, and how you should carry yourself. If you know, if you're centered in yourself, if you know how your hips move, how your spine fluctuates, that stuff can no longer be sexualized. That is who you are as a human being. And if you know that your color, be it the palest of the palest white person to the darkest of the darkest Black person, and everyone in between, if you are valued for your hair being in braids, for it being in a natural, for it being permed, whatever, if you know yourself, no one can define you. And so when that acculturation happens and women go and fill their butts and their boobs and their lips and fix their noses to look like you, but then don't accept you for being you, then that can't happen. There's this theory that change happens in culture and it happens within yourself. When I was a teacher and an assistant principal and administrator my first career, and I taught bilingual education. I taught Spanish bilingual kids. And the theory is you learn first in your own language, and then you transfer that knowledge into a new language. So if we learn first in our own language, in who we are, then we can show the world how you treat us, going back to value. Erica, thank you. That was such an important nugget. Wes, I'm passing the baton to you, and then we'll close out with Yarden.
All So the question primarily was just how do we see value, right? Like in the communities or, all right, cool. Yeah, I know we were all talking all this good stuff. Richard, thank you for, going off and being in depth of just talking about the reason why this is being, why we're having these conversations, because a lot of people need to understand that. I talk about even the fact that why are we having these exact particular conversations in 2020 when we're talking about health and wellness, when it's been such a large mainstream thing that's been pushed off for so many years recently, and still, we're trying to figure out how can we see more faces of us, but then they're also trying to figure out how can they go in the community and be empathetic on trying to bring us to the table. And what I mean by that is, what I've seen is the lack of value is because no one actually comes into our communities with from a place of empathy. And because they've already judged us and they already have their microaggressions when it comes toward us. And so when you're bringing it, rather I'm poor or not, you should not use that as something that you can symbolize on me. So, the language that's constantly used, like, oh, we're going to constantly go in these underserved communities. Well, we lack service because we don't have the resources here. It's not our fault that we were born into it, but we have to find a way to get out of it. And that's where the value is. It's the value for me is I have to understand that only way we will see it is if we do it and if we push it. And so, you see a lot of my initiatives. I'm working with some amazing organizations. I do a lot of speaking, so I do share my perspective, but I think that's the value. The value is understanding that everyone comes in with a different perspective on just how they see themselves and how they see life. And when you can see that, then you don't see them for their perspective, but you see them for what they're trying to do, the courage, the ability to grow, the ambition, determination. And so I believe in value by us just being that representation. We have to constantly, because we know where it lacks. I'm also a firm believer of just building it. So, yes, I understand we got to finesse and maneuver through avenues to get funded and things and make great friends. And that's where we got allyship and so on. But our communities don't have anything, and so I'm a field of dream guy. So I'm like, if you build it, they come, and I refuse to have things or boundaries put in front of me that I know that have limited me and my community and my culture for so long. Like, we can't just sit here and say, man, when is it going to come? No, when are we going to do it? Is it something small? Like Richard said, doing things out of the basement, and like for me, I made my garage into a gym as soon as COVID hit. I'm still going to make the impact to the people that I see because I see value in serving others. And so, like, for me, it's like I have to do it because I know what is missing. Like, you have to be willing to sacrifice your life to commit to what we're doing right now. Because that, what I mean by it's going to be sweat, blood, effort, constant, like stressful days and nights, conversations like this. You're going to have to be able to understand others' perspectives and then be able to shift your mindset to constantly allowing us to grow and not be stuck where we are, and so, yeah, value is important, but it comes with representation, and we have to just too, yeah, I get that a lot of these organizations are, top tier. They're large. Would love to have my name stamped on, but I'm not stamping my name on you if you don't value my life as much as you value the things I represent. And so that's just, and that's why, me as a person in my organization, we have left partnerships for that reason. And because I'm a Black man, I grew up in the streets before I ever became who I am. So, like, for me, I know what it felt like to be judged. I know what it felt like to have a limited mindset. I know all of that. And I also know what it feels like to know that I can change when I never thought I could. So I know that we can bring value to our communities in a way that we challenge mindsets, but we have to be that representation and we cannot hold back our stories. Eric, I'm happy that you shared yours because I want to tell you right now, I told you when we got on, I had a crazy morning. So I train kids with disabilities. So I got one of my athletes into wheelchair basketball, but he's an amputee. So I'm literally right here in front of Murray high school in Murray, Nebraska. Like I'm like yes. So like I just seen like Lincoln, Nebraska, like not too far from here, and I'm by Omaha. So when you was talking about, it, I'm like, oh, keep telling me, because I've already
I'm
been
from
in the school
Lincoln.
once.
I'm from
Yeah.
Lincoln.
We were all meant to be. We were all meant to be.
So I thought I would just share that, but yeah, I just truly we just gotta represent, and we look at our communities, and what we gotta see is what we see on the other side of town. How do we bring those things into our community that speak the culture, that is valued on empathy, so that we can move through with.
Amen. Thank you. You guys, first of all, I'm so proud of you because it's only 11:05. And I just honor all of you. Like for all of you have just taken a step and taken the lead. And you have been and you are change makers in our community. And it is time to step into your own. And those who are watching, I want everyone to see that we represent all of us, and we are different shades. We're different abilities. We're different abilities, even in the sense that we represent mindfulness. We represent strength. We represent rowing. We represent so much that is more than just a vision of skin. And take the time, like Erica said, to take care of yourself, because if you are not whole, you can't give. So to every person, be unapologetic about who you are and what you need, and you are of value. Everyone on this platform, I'm going to share everything that you do. We will definitely be blasting it out. I want you to be followed on social media. I want people to participate in your programs. We are going to come together. And this might be faux pas, but I want everyone to, I'm shouting you out, Amy Crawford. I want to thank you. This almost brings tears to my eye, but the interpreter that Open Up has is a white woman. And she said, hey, would April want a woman of color to be an interpreter? And they found her. And so I honor you and I thank you for getting on this platform for us to represent. And I just got a text message from somebody saying, Amy is the bomb. I am watching her. So please continue, know your value, know your worth, continue to do the work. We are going to continue. I think we need a part 2. Are you guys down to do a part 2? Okay, this might just be an ongoing series. I want to talk about mental health in the Black community. I want to continue to talk about health and wellness in the Black community. So I definitely will be inviting you guys on to do this again. My heart's with you, my spirit's with you, my power is with you as much as I can give. And anyone else have any closing words? Maybe everyone could say a word or 2.
I got one. Difference is our superpower.
Love it.
Guys, remember that leadership is important, and it's important not just from one person, not from the president, not from your mayor. It is important in your household, and we have to teach our children that they are leaders, and leaders make changes.
Thank you, Yarden.
All right, I got it. All right, so in order to free yourself from self-inflicted chains, you have to find yourself and you have to see yourself, meaning that you have to know and love the person that you are and embody, and that will literally free you and allow you to now go into this world and be the person that you actually want to be. So start with you first and allow everything else to come next.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Ms. Jones, any final thoughts?
My thoughts is if each individual is leading from their purpose, then we will begin to consistently walk and see change, and to always be an integral with that, leading from our purpose and really knowing that.
Thank you.